welcome to Catch Outdoors. I'm your host, Captain Rob Modes. This podcast is about living and playing in the great outdoors, especially down this way, the most southern region of the continental U.S., the Florida Keys, the fabulous Florida Keys. Catch Outdoors is hosted by Spotify and also brought to you by your favorite podcast networks. So kick back and get a taste of my Florida. Hi there. This week's episode of Catch Outdoors is number 112, titled Fishing Line. I have to be honest with you, this is like take 4. I don't know what was wrong with me trying to get started on this. I do know. Normally, this is Sunday afternoon late, and I normally do this on Sunday early. And so I'm kind of like wide awake. I've had my coffee. Well, today I've already been out fishing. Today was Janelle's day. Today was the day that I told her, I said, you have to go fishing. That's all there is to it. If nothing else, you have to go for a boat ride because I don't think she's been on the boat in a month or over a month because we had guests here for a while, twice. And, so I was fishing some people and we were going around and we were fighting weather then too, but she hadn't been out. And I said, okay, this is it. You have to go. And it was windy again, but whatever. We had fun. More about that in a minute. Anyway, so I tried to get this podcast started and I flubbed the intro 4 times. This is going to be good. We'll see what happens. So anyway, titled Fishing Line. This past Tuesday was tough. I'll tell you that right now. This is the fishing report part that I always start with. Oh, I know. I got a good weekend the week before. If you've listened to last week's podcast, you know that I had a really great time. I caught a bunch of fish, some big trout. Everything was just perfect. Now, it was radically different today. The tides were different. The wind was different. Everything was weird. Okay, so I understand. And it was tough again today. But last Tuesday was nuts. I think I caught 3 fish in 48 miles. I was like, what? So, yeah, well, I'm going to talk about that in a little while too, about this weird, my attitude toward fishing. But anyway, I'll get to that in a minute. So it got so good the week before, and then the wind started blowing again, and I decided to go fishing anyway because I just have to be on the water. Am I whining yet? It doesn't matter. I can always find a place to hide. That's the theory, right? I mean, I live in an area where you have backcountry that is just massive, and there's a zillion islands, and there's places that you can tuck into and still fish a good tide balance with a little bit of a breeze on a shoreline, that's my go-to. I shun not fishing in wind, going and fishing on the backside of an island. That's kind of for me personally, it's kind of a no-no because I know that wind pushes bait and bait pushes up against the mangrove areas and that you're going to catch more fish there. So that's why I do what I do. But when it gets excessive, when it's blowing 15 with gusts of 20, I'm sorry, I'm old. I don't do that stuff anymore. Anyway, I tried to find a place to hide, and I thought, well, there'll be fish there. It's okay. They'll be on the edges. They weren't. They just weren't. 3 fish. I caught a lizard fish. I caught a barracuda and a baby trout. And I mean, this was an aquarium-sized trout if that was legal. I don't know what was up. I can say the wind. I can just blame it on the wind. But perhaps the lack of moon tides or, because we are getting, now we're getting on the new moon, I guess it is. And I haven't seen a moon in a few days, so I'm assuming that's what it is. I mean, at this point, it's anybody's guess, quite honestly. But it was a magnificently beautiful day. I will tell you, Tuesday was it was a Florida days. It was just gorgeous. A bright blue sky with puffy clouds and white strings of clouds, and the mangroves bright green, and just, it was just beautiful. So there was that. 48 miles of beautiful. So Sunday, fish today with my lovely wife, Janelle, and we did pretty well. I had some trout, got jacks, absolute ton of barracuda, and that is no exaggeration. We pulled into a cove where there were 40 or 50 barracuda cruising. It was ridiculous. It would be stupid to throw something in there unless you like losing lures. I don't think I've ever seen that many. I mean, like they were schooled up. I'm not talking about the usual 2 or 3 that'll cruise together. They were schooled up in numbers. It was crazy. So that was kind of neat. They were hungry. They ate along with the few trout. I think we caught 4. I think she said the count was 4 and a couple jacks. So it was way better than when I went on the past Tuesday. Let's put it that way. Still windy. We had a breeze of about 10 this morning with a gust of 15. Going across the flats was very interesting. In the flats boat, it was a little bumpy, but we were able to get into areas that weren't so bad. Yet we were still getting a nice breeze on ourselves, and it was comfortable. It's today's temp was 85, I think 84, 85, with a humidity of about 70. Yeah, I think the humidity point was around 70. So not soaking wet, horrible like summer when it's 95 with 1,000%. humidity, so it was a little better. But anyway, we had a good time. We definitely saw some sights, and that was fun. A couple dolphin, things like that. So we got another batch of nasty weather coming in. So today was the day. It's coming our way starting Monday evening, tomorrow evening. And although today seemed like a ramp up, to be honest with you, it's coming from all directions this time. I really love this. We have a couple lows to the left and below us. So to the west and then down in the lower Caribbean. I think it's in the Bay of Campeche, actually. But anyway, down that way. That one's actually got a nice little yellow bubble on it, a balloon saying that possibly can turn into a tropical blow. Fun. Great. And then there's a high pressure system off to the right. So what is this, like the perfect storm or something? Have you seen that movie where all the things come together? Sometimes I feel like we're sitting right in the center of that crap, and that's what's going to happen. So I won't be fishing this week probably until maybe late. Well, no, I don't go late. I like mornings. Let's say Thursday morning, maybe, if we're lucky. So otherwise, I'll be back working on books and stuff and things that I probably should be doing. So anyway, with somebody, if somebody's watching over me, the guardian angel up there, or I need several guardian angels, if you would please just give us our usual winner. Starting maybe this week would be really nice. The low in the 60s, high in the high 70s. Barely hit 80, and then have the wind slow down. I would be so happy. I'm thinking the next time I go fishing, I'll be honest with you, I'm going out in the Atlantic. I'm going to wait for it to be dead calm. I'm going to go out there where I know I can drop stuff in somewhere between 30 and 40 feet of water and catch a whole bunch of fish and bring home some dinner, bring home some snappers. So I said this earlier, okay, about fishing. I overheard something at the Lorelei a few nights ago. A couple guys at the bar were talking, and we were listening to tunes, and this one guy says to the other guy, he says, it was something like this. He said, dude, just relax. We're retired. We don't have to go out there and knock ourselves out every time we go fishing. I almost spilled my drink on myself. I was like, wow, so profound. And it hit home. It really did. Dude, just relax. We're retired. We don't have to go out there and knock ourselves out every time we go fishing. That is the truth. And I tend to fish like a guide because I was a guide for a long time. And it became necessary for me to catch fish. And now it's not necessary anymore. It's just not. If you're my friend and you come down and go fishing with me, keep in mind it is not necessary for me to find fish anymore. It'll be a nice boat ride. We'll catch fish. I'll work at it. I'll go to places I know where they've been. We'll certainly try. But I am even personally, by myself on the boat, I am over knocking myself out over this. I'm trying to enjoy life now. 70's only a little over a week away. 2 weeks away. Is that right? No. Oh, my God. No, it's a little over a week away. Holy crap. Anyway, am I worried about 70? No. I talked to my mom on the phone the other day. It was pretty funny. She's 90. She just turned 90 back in June. She said, 90 is not a problem. And I said, oh. And she said, no, what's a problem is you turning 70. I like that. And your granddaughter, her granddaughter, rather, being 49, and my youngest daughter just turned 30 in October. my little baby girl turned 30. So I understand what you're saying, but I just thought that was funny. No, 90 is not a problem. It's you turning 70. Anyway, a light bulb went off in my head when he said that, just so I can follow up on that thought. And he was absolutely right. I'm not a fishing guide anymore. That's where it struck me right there. And this is not a friggin' tournament either. I'm not fishing tournaments anymore. I need to go out in the boat, fish a bit, relax a bit, fish a bit. This is my new modus operandi. I am not going to kill myself over this. And then I'm going to go home early because it's okay to go home early. It is. If you want to go out with me, we go home when I go home. No, I'm just teasing. If you decide you want to stay longer, you need to tell me, but I may just sit around and watch, which is, heck, when I was a guide, I had trouble sitting around watching. So that's hard for me to do. But anyway, but you get the idea. I have no idea who the guy at the bar was, but if I see him again, I'm going to buy him a drink or 2 or 3 and thank him. Speaking of the Lorelei, went there last Sunday and listened to Davidson Webb play up there, Billy and Steve. And I had the mahi tacos. I love those things. They make really good tacos there with all the right creamy sauces to put on top, avocado, all that kind of fun stuff. And the mahi is the standard. You can order up. You can go to Yellowtail or Grouper or whatever. But the mahi is fine. Tastes great. And when you're going to cover it up with a whole bunch of stuff anyway in a taco, does it really matter to go to the top shelf fish? I personally don't think so, unless you're making like a lobster taco. Now that's good. But I had that and a few pineapple vodkas. That's becoming my new favorite libation. During the band break, Billy came over and sat at our table, and we had a really nice talk. For those that haven't caught up with last week's podcast, I announced that I wrote a song years ago, and Billy produced it over the last 5 or 6 weeks. I guess we were in the studio trying to get this done, and he is fantastic. Billy, if you listening, thank you. Thank you so much for all the work you put into that thing. It's crazy. And I really haven't enjoyed anything that much in a long time, and I really, really enjoyed that. That was a ton of fun. So my song is done. Yay! It's finished. I can't believe it. I've got a copy of it. If anybody wants to listen to it, you can email me. If you email me, that's hard. Capt Rob, C-A-P-T, Rob Modys, M-O-D-Y-S @gmail.com. And I will be happy to email the song back to you in MP3. Okay, so I can take care of that for you. So anyway, back to my original thought. We were sitting around the table, and Billy says, "Hey, the garden party's coming up." And for those that don't know what this is, Billy does. As I found out by accident, well, I kind of knew this, but more by accident than anything else. The reason he went after me with the song and said, "Yes, let's do your song," is he likes introducing new artists, and he brings them in from all over the U.S., especially Florida and these areas, Northeast, Myrtle Beach, places that play out for beachy music, bar music, stuff like that. And he really is into that. And he has this thing every year. It starts in November. It's called the Garden Party, and it's Billy and Cindy's his wife, garden party, and they have special guests at each and every one of these things. And the first one happens to be on my birthday, 11/21. It's a Tuesday, and this is the warm-up night. This is Billy by himself without a guest, and all of a sudden he says at the table, "Well, why don't you come play?" And I'm like, "What?" And he says, yeah, come do your song," which makes me nervous because I haven't played in front of people in a long, long time, but I used to. So, I know what a gig is, and I know what to do. So he said, "Nah, just come the day before and we'll practice. We'll play around some and we'll get some stuff set up, and then you can play. That way you can play your new song for people." And this is scary because it's going out on YouTube and Facebook Live and all kinds. So anyway, so I'm a tad nervous, but at the same time, I'm very excited to say the least. To give you an idea, he does this every Tuesday night at, hang on, I got the time here. Let's get all this information out for you. Tuesday, every Monday and Tuesday through April. So 4 p.m. to 4:30 is the sound check. 4:30 to 5 p.m. Billy performs. 5:30 to 6:30 the special guest artist appears, and 6:30 to 7 they all play together. So it's kind of an all evening thing. It's a party. It's in his backyard, literally in his backyard, and it's fun. Janelle and I went to a couple of them late last year when they were just winding down, and I said, "Man, these are really great." Of course, we live down the street, so there's no reason not to go. They're invitation only to the live party, just so you know, but you can tune in on Facebook and on YouTube. Let's see. Facebook is facebook.com/CD Records. That's facebook.com/CD Records. CD Records is all one word. And then he also has a second feed at facebook.com/CD Records 63. On YouTube, it's at Billy Davidson, just like it sounds, 6540. That's 6540. And I'll put those up again right before the shows. I'll do this next Sunday or next Tuesday on the podcast, so you can get that. But he's got some great special guests coming up, and pretty much it's a weekly deal. So it goes on every single week, all the way through the end of April. So I'm excited, and I can't wait to play my tune for people. This will really be great. So I'm a tad panicky, but it'll be okay. I'll be all right. I'm also working on the ability to download it, so that'll come shortly, I hope. Let's see, book reading. I talked about this several times. Well, actually over the last couple of weeks. I'm pleased to say that my Kindle is finally getting a workout. I gotten into the bad habit of looking at stuff on my phone in the middle of the night. How many of you do that? Raise your hands. I saw you. Yeah, you wake up, you grab the phone, right? It's dark, it's lonesome, it's quiet. I think I'll take a peek at Facebook. I'll take a peek at Instagram. I'll take a peek at Twitter, and I'll check the weather, whatever. So you get to looking at that phone, stories, and next thing you know, you woke up, like at 1 a.m, and suddenly you're up till 3. Ridiculous. So I thought, I got to get back into reading. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, and that's what I'm doing. I am getting back into reading my favorite genre of novels, which is primarily mystery novels set in islandy Florida locations. And I got lots of recommendations. Thank you all very much. And I have now, my phone's pissed. Yeah, iPhone tells you how much you use it. Every week you get a little thing called the weekly report of how many hours you spent on your phone. And that thing was really getting completely out of hand. So now it's mad, because I cut way, way, way back because I'm reading. I'm a light sleeper. And so if I wake up at 1, that means I'm going to be up for at least a half hour or so. Just, my brain is going like 100 miles an hour. I'm thinking about things I'm going to do and stuff. And I just, I have a difficulty going unless I read or look. Well, Facebook isn't the thing. I shouldn't say Facebook. The phone in general is not the thing to look at because it's topical. There's all this stuff going on, and you go in and then you read. Anyway, the books really help because a book will put me to sleep. If I just start reading a book, next thing you know, I drop the Kindle on my chest, and it's a little one, thank God, and out I go. And it's wonderful. And the Kindle keeps place, knows what page you were on. So when you wake back up, you look, oh, okay, good. I didn't have to do a bookmark or anything. So that's kind of cool. So I'm really starting to break this habit. That being a light sleeper now, I'm actually getting more sleep, which the doctors will be very happy to hear. And I have also put a pox on the on the iPhone. So anyway, I finished the one I was talking about last week called Fallen Out. That's Falle, Fallen Out. And I liked it. So I started the next one in the series called Fallen Palm. These are by Wayne Stinnett is who it is. Janelle recommended him. Said, you really ought to read these. He's all based in the Keys, and it's great. And he has a lot of local Keys knowledge. He really does. It's fun to read him. Let me tell you something. I'm reading them in order. So technically, the very first book was Fallen Palm. Fallen Out, he wrote as not an addendum, like a prequel. It's a prequel. So he wrote a prequel because people kept asking about his character. So where did this guy come from? What's the background? What's his gig? What is this about? And so he wrote that book. So I read that first to give me an idea who the character is about. And that's really well written. I liked it right off the bat. So that's Fallen Out. And then the Fallen Palm is technically his first book. So one says 2014 published. The other one says like 2012 2008 or something like that. And then you just read the whole series if you want. I got several recommendations for new stuff from listeners, and the list is now long and full of writers that I haven't read before, which is really, really cool. I downloaded one. Thank you, Mike. Mike is an avid listener. You know who you are. I'll call you Tampa Mike there, in case there's more. Well, there are more, but Tampa Mike. He suggested the Matt Royal Mystery Series, which is written by a guy named Terrell Griffin. That's Terrell, Terrell. Terrell Griffin, Griffin. And the series, the hero, if you will, is Matt Royal. And Matt has 2 T's. So I looked that one up and found the first book is called Longboat. No, it's not Longboat. Yeah, Longboat Blues. Longboat Blues is the name of the first book. The books are set in Longboat Key and in that area. Written back in 2005, so this is a bit early. This is a ways back. I read the first few. I think I read the first chapter after I downloaded it, and it's very Randy Wayne White-ish. If you know who Randy Wayne White is, there I go. Randy Wayne White. There, gosh, I'm Moses. He's a great mystery writer. He's written a whole bunch of the Sanibel-based, Captiva-based novels that people are totally hooked on, to the point of where he made enough money to open restaurants and do all kinds of. Randy's a pretty cool character. Met him several times, bumped into him, and he's pretty congenial. He's sometimes standoffish, but most of the time he's pretty nice. Sit down with him and have a chat. His books are great, and I really enjoy reading them. So check them out. That's another one. But I've gone through all. Wait, there's a new one coming. I think there's a new one coming this summer, as a matter of fact. So anyway, the write-ups on Matt Royal books look really good, and there's 11 of them. So I'm finding these series where I'm never going to be out of books now. But what I am going to do is this. I've decided not to read the entire series in a row. That used to be what I did. I'd find something and just burn through them. And I need to jump around a bit to get a taste of all the new recommendations, because these writers are all, they're published, which means obviously they're pretty good. But I really want to kind of get a feel for what they write about. So I'm very happy with the first batch that I'm doing with the Mike Stinnett books. Did I say that right? I think so. I hope so. Wayne Stinnett. I'm sorry, Wayne. Those books are really good, and his writing is readable and funny and harsh all at the same time, which I kind of like. I made progress on the upcoming fishing book this week. I decided to go with a title. It's called Holy Crap, I've Written Another Book. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. I had no idea what I was going to call it. It's been titled about 9 different things. And finally, I had this epiphany moment that said, just do it like the other book. The other book has been wildly successful. I'm extremely happy. Amazon is still selling that book. And that's what I know about fishing Southwest Florida. I cannot believe it's been, almost 3 years now? Gosh, I'd have to go back and look at the published date. It's been a while. And that thing, I'm still getting mailbox money, which makes me really happy. So I thought, well, I'll just name this one What I Know About Fishing the Florida Keys. And the reason for that is, and I mean, it's a working title. It could change. But What I Know About Fishing the Florida Keys is really what it's about. I had to go there because the first book was What I Know. Emphasis on KNOW, what I know about fishing Southwest Florida, not what other people knew, not what other people told me. It was more me being out there and fishing and playing and understanding and working and getting the amount of knowledge that I got just messing around fishing in those waters. Well, the same things happen here in the Keys. And so I thought, it's really what I know. I don't want to write about what everybody else knows. I like advice, and I like somebody telling me, well, you might want to mention this, that kind of. I like that. But I want it to be observations of somebody that, like I said, I've told people this. I know Islamorada in that area really, really well. Janelle and I spent a lot of time fishing that area. But here in Key Largo, and down to Tavernier, not as much, and way down south, not as much, except for the Pine area, Big Pine area, and the Keys and the Big Pine Coppet and all those fun keys in there. But there's these holes because it's 100 miles long, But I want to fish and play there, and I want to go out and look around, and I want to kind of get a feel for it. So this book will be what I know about fish in this area. Not. I don't want to be an authoritarian. I don't want to go out there and say this an authority rather. I don't want to be an authority on the whole thing. You can't be. I don't think you can. Haven't met anybody that is yet. Everybody down here seems to have their unique and happy place, and that's really where I want this to be. So that's the working title. All right. Let's see. I'm working on another song. Oh God, from the vault. My vault is my primary songwriting was 95 to about 1998. I really put a lot of effort into them, and that's where this first song came from, which turned out to be better than I thought it was. I got all these people now going, "Oh, that's a really good song, man." And so that feels really good. And they're like, "You got any more?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I do." And so that's where it's going. I have to tell you, it's a lot of fun writing and playing in music, especially in the studio experience. I have found a new addiction, as if I don't have enough addictions. But I'm going to run with this while I can. I was on the phone, like I said, with my mom the other day, and we were talking about all kinds of stuff. And we were talking about the song and how it happened, and she was really excited about it. It was great. She was glad that it's happening. She said, even at my age, which thanks, Mom. But anyway, she's right. Even at my age of being as old as I am, is like, oh, you've got this song going. That's cool. But she said she wasn't surprised that I had always been a late bloomer. And I love that. So now, if it ever gets to the point where I have 4 or 5 songs that I can put into a mini album, you all know what the name of the album's going to be. That's right. The Late Bloomer. So we'll see what happens. All right, it's time for this week's title, Fishing Line. Time to get serious. Not really. I'm not going to I never get serious. People will tell you I don't get very serious. Obviously, I'm writing a book about fishing. And this whole debate started while writing a chapter about what fishing line to use in the Salt. Talk to myself a lot. Not other people, talking to myself. What would you do? Okay, so I grew up when there wasn't anything but monofilament, right? And then along came braid. And braid came along pretty heavy as I became enamored in being a fishing guide. So there was braid before that, of course. But because I didn't really become a full-time guide into 2001, I guess it was, that's when I really went hog wild on it. Then there's this, okay, so I'm writing this book now, and again, what I know. And so I'm writing about my experiences with this. So I'm going to run this. This is not a debate. This is not like so-and-so says this is better, because I just don't believe that's true. There are reasons to use both. There really are. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about here. So, okay, here comes a blanket statement. I suggest you use whatever makes you happy and whatever gives you the most confidence. Confidence is pretty key. It really is. It is in the world of fishing, it's probably the key element. I guess it's like, wearing that favorite hat when you go fishing, or picking that favorite color for a lure or a jig head. Believe me, I get it. Confidence. You have to have confidence in what you're using. If you put something on without confidence, or if you fish something without confidence, you're probably not going to catch fish. I know that sounds crazy, doesn't it? But this is true. So when it comes to the fishing lines, the 2 primary types are monofilament and braid. I mean, everybody probably knows that by now. Since braid's been around long enough, it's not a big secret anymore. I prefer braided line, but I also know there are times when it's much better idea to use monofilament. Okay, so let's talk about each one in their own right. Let's cover each one. Monofilament came first. Well, sort of. We could argue that. Braided silk line was actually the very first fishing line. Go look it up. Google it. They could only make about 8 feet of it to fish with. It was braided from silk from a moth. Yeah, but it was technically braided. So if you really want to get down to brass tacks, you say braided line was first. And people look at you and go, no, it wasn't. Mono's been here forever. Well, they're right in a way. Modern day braid came after monofilament. But monofilament was a combination, for ease of explanation, chemicals. And I believe Dow Chemical was greatly responsible for the manufacture of it, although there were many others, but Dow Chemical was the one that I remember most reading about. How it was used for years before modern braided line made an appearance in the world of sport fishing. So it's good to know that mono, in my world, our world, mono came first, okay, and then braid. Monofilament is simple. It's easy to use. It's easy to buy. It's relatively inexpensive. I mean, you can spend money on it, but quite frankly, you don't have to. It's probably what's better known by most of us. It would be, I'd say, 40 years or older. If you're younger than that, you're probably really keyed on braid and don't know a lot about mono. That's typically what I have found talking to people. The monofilament pound test is usually like the most common, seems to be 8 pound test to 10 pound, maybe 12. But in saltwater fishing, 10 pounds seems to be the one everybody sides with. The things to know about mono are this, and this is not detrimental. Now, this is just what to know about it. It stretches. It has memory. If you use clear, it's relatively not seen when you fish it. You don't need to buy a color in monofilament. You can simply buy clear line. As a matter of fact, colored lines in monofilament came much later. Mono was just see-through, clear line. And then people started doing yellow and reds, blues, dark greens, all kinds of fun colors in it. It's easy to tie. It stays tied when you put knots on it. It's great for knotting. It's relatively strong. It really is. It's relatively strong per side. There are other things about it that I enjoy about it. For one thing, it sinks, and that's important in some fishing. I think that pretty much covers it. Braid, on the other hand, braid is strong, almost unbreakable. It's unreal. It's very, very, very thin in compared to the equivalent weight size of monofilament. So in other words, if you put on like 10 pound or 15 pound braid, it's not much bigger than 2 pound to 4 pound test mono. If that doesn't make sense to you, it's just skinny. Okay. It has more strength and it's skinnier. It has less abrasion. It takes more to cut it, rubbing up against something. It floats, which is kind of, I mentioned mono sinks, braid floats. Relatively. I mean, it will sink a little, but if you cast it and you watch it, you'll notice it stays on top of the water for quite a while before it starts to disappear. It holds color really well. Now it does. The early braids were terrible, but the braid now holds color. So if you're interested in something like blue, white, high-vis yellow, which is one I use, then it's all there. It can be a pain in the butt to tie. It's slippery as all get out. So if you don't know your knots, things are going to come loose on you. I'm sure. Castability is incredible. I would have to say, compared to monofilament, braid will cast much further. It's slippery. It's slick, so it goes to the eyes on the rod, the guides on the rod, real easily, and so you can cast it really far. Especially if you downsize the pound test. Get down into the 8 pound and 10 pound test braid. My gosh, throw it farther than you want to throw. Wind up in the mangrove a lot if you're not careful. So that's kind of the basics of it. So rather than, I didn't want to really go pro-con with this at the moment, but I just want to talk about like why you should do what. Okay, so let's back up. Monofilament sinks. If you're fishing in deep water, you're fishing in water off of like a beach, you're fishing in an area where you want to get to the bottom, mono is better than braid. It will sink down faster. It will. That's all there is to it. It's plain and simple. Braid has a tendency to float, and especially with these new lighter soft plastics. There are soft plastics out there by one off the top of my head is Z-Man. There's a few others that are almost like they have bubbles of air in them, and they tend to float a lot when they first hit the water. They don't go down unless you're using a weighted hook. Braid doesn't help. Braid will keep them right up near the surface. So if you're looking for something to help you sink a lure, then monofilament comes into play. In my world, I use braid all the time, except when I'm fishing for tarpon. I don't use it fishing for tarpon. And as I start to get more and more into offshore fishing, which I did not do living on the West Coast, because you have to go 40 or 50 miles out to go deep sea fishing, so to speak. Here you go 7 or 8 miles out and you're in 150 feet of water. So I've started doing more of that, even from a flat skiff. And so I've started playing with monofilament versus braid in that world. Mono stretches. Mono is a built-in shock absorber, and that's important to know. And if you use braid and you tie a long piece of mono to the end of that, like as a shock tippet, so to speak, say you rip off 20 feet and you tie that to the end of the braid, that's going to give you some shock absorber, but not enough for some fish. Tarpon are notorious for jumping out of the water, and then they land, of course. And if they land on your line, and it's braided line, and you haven't got anything built in for shock absorption, and you forget to bow to the king, which is where you stick your arm out and lower the rod toward the water, and he lands on it, it's going to bust. He's going to bust it at a knot. He's going to bust it at the hook. It's going to bust because there's no stretch. That's why I like mono, and that's why I use mono when I'm tarpon fishing. Plain and simple. If I am purposely going after tarpon or going to where I know they're going to be, there will always be one rod on the boat that's rigged with monofilament, and it's rigged, believe it or not, with 12-pound mono. I do not go crazy with mono. I put on larger tips. I'll increase the hook size if it's bait fishing, and if not, it's, I've caught more tarpon on fly than I have on spin. So in the world of fly fishing, things are somewhat lightweight anyway. And that's the way I think when I go fishing for tarpon with spinning gear. So 12-pound test is just fine for most big fish. You can put a lot of pressure on them. Remember now, you're not lifting the fish out of the water. 12-pound will easily break when you try to pick a tarpon up, but getting it to the side of the boat, I know guys that go 15, 18, 20. You can do that, but I like 12. I like 12. It's castable. Get a lot of casting distance, which can be essential when you have moving tarpon. But that's my secret. If it's a secret, it's a shock absorber. I also like to use, when I'm shark fishing, big sharks, intentionally fishing for sharks. I'll do braid, and then I'll do a nice long piece of mono, typically 20, 25 feet of mono. That'll be in the 15 to 18-pound test. And then I beef it up on the very end. At that point, it's going to have steel leader, usually single strand. I like single strand. I like the braided stuff for steel leaders is great. But when sharks bite it, it tends to shred and come apart. Whereas a single strand, they have to hit it perfectly to break a single strand. Most of the time it goes between their teeth like dental floss. So you can kind of get away with more with that. And that's just me talking. That's just some experience. I did a lot of shark fishing on the West Coast. And so I found that the single strand worked better. So there's the mono braid thing. You got one that works really, really good for stretchiness, and you have one that works really, really good non-stretch. I love braid for feel. If I'm going out snapper fishing, if I'm going offshore here looking for yellowtail in 30 feet of water, if I'm looking for mangrove snapper in the back and I'm looking for that little tap of a bite, I'm not talking about a snook bite or a redfish. It's pretty obvious when they eat. It's even obvious when a sea trout eats. You get that nice thump, and you'll get that on mono. But on braid, getting that little extra teeny tiny tap that you probably would have otherwise missed on monofilament is a huge deal for me, So I love yellowtail fishing with it. I put a nice long piece of fluorocarbon leader on it so they can't see it. And I peel it out with a little piece of bait on it in the current. And they pick it up, and I can feel the slightest little tap when they go after it. And sometimes it's a big tap, but a lot of times they just kind of barely pick it up. And having that braid feel on there, I like a lot. I also like the visibility of braid when I'm fishing in shallow water in the backcountry. I like to use the high-vis yellow braid versus mono. Again, it stays near the surface. It floats somewhat, and I can really tell where my line is when I'm casting toward mangroves, toward a point, and I've got current moving line around. I like having the braid out there. So, all right. So I hope that helped. I hope we gave you some tips on it, and so you can, play with both. But don't give up on mono. I want to really stress that. Do not give up on monofilament. Monofilament's been around for a long time. It definitely has its uses. And if you're not using it, go back and try some of it. You'd be surprised how much better mono's gotten over the last 10 years. They're doing some substantial improvements to it because braid was heavily competitive. And like I said, there are definitely times for both. And so have both whenever you go fishing. Have a wonderful week. and please spend some time outside. Thanks much for listening. A heartfelt a serious thank you to all those listeners that have supported my podcast. You don't know how much I appreciate it. If you enjoyed listening, please tell a friend, leave a review. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Facebook page is Catch Outdoors, website's catchoutdoors.com, where you can find all the previous podcasts and a schedule of what's coming up. Until next time, get outdoors and enjoy.